for some reason, this country cannot seem to respond to the economic devastation that it is facing at the end of this month in terms of unemployment, or I should say the economic devastation of its citizens. When 12 million people are going to be thrown off of unemployment insurance, where we have millions who are going to be unprotected in terms of eviction moratoriums. A month later, we're going to have the end of the moratorium on student loans, student loan debt, I should say. And we still have Mitch McConnell insisting upon full immunity for corporations and for institutions for subjecting their workers or their customers or their members to unnecessary risks during this time by cutting corners on safety measures in an era of COVID. Meanwhile, the House, and I imagine the Senate is going to follow suit. We just don't know if it'll be veto-proof in the Senate. The House overwhelmingly passes a $740 billion defense bill, like a walk in the park.
Like it was nothing. And Trump's threatening to veto it because it doesn't get rid of Section 230, which is his new pet project.
And there's other, Section 230 aside, because it's a controversial provision. But this is 335 to 78. You cannot veto that out of the House. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But here is Bernie Sanders, who is also agitating for, and the White House came in with a proposal the other last night to provide one-time Trump bucks. I think it was $1,200 for a couple, or $600 per person, or maybe
$600 per person, $600 for a child,
and $600 for a child. And not sure I don't know if we know specifically what the cutoff would be in terms of income, but that would be a one-time payment, as opposed to 3 or 4 months of, and they basically got rid of 3 or 4 months of expanded unemployment insurance, and also unemployment insurance that covers people who are independent contractors. And Bernie Sanders and some other members of the Democratic Senate, I think also they're joined by Josh Hawley, have said they want a $1,200 payment on top of the unemployment expanded unemployment benefits. And
it initially appeared like the Trump administration was responding positively and joining Hawley and Sanders in this more progressive fight for a payment to Americans, even though it was half of what was initially received. But then they go, of course, actually, that means we'll push that forward, but you're not getting any federal money for unemployment insurance.
Right. And I think they have 40 billion in there, but it's not nearly enough. I think it's very anemic. Yeah. And right. I think from Trump's perspective, it's like he's still thinking about whatever it is he's going to do after president. And I'm happy to have, you can almost smell the thinking here, right? I'm happy to have people have a check with my name on it. A, which won't happen if it's unemployment insurance, and B, I don't care about the losers. I don't care about it. They lost their job. They lost their job. But here's right. Bernie Sanders on MSNBC making the point that it is stunning that we have the ability to pass a $740 billion military budget without batting an eye, but actually providing economic relief to people in the middle of a pandemic is even remotely controversial.
Stephanie, I always get a kick. Here in Washington, when we go to war, there's endless amounts of money. Tax breaks for billionaires, endless amounts of money. Corporate welfare, endless amounts of money. When children are going hungry in America today, suddenly we don't have enough money. That's crap. That's wrong. And if we have got to stay here throughout Christmas, which is the last thing in the world that I would want to do, we are going to stay here because we are going to make sure that struggling working families in this country get the help they desperately need.
That's crap.
I was going to say.
Got to add that to the soundboard.
It is. We do need to pull that. Pull that for me, Matt. I want to use that crap. But it is. I mean, you know, sometimes we get involved in this, and it is about the fights that are happening, and we sort of accept the premise that the Republicans are, they're simply, fundamentally against the idea of helping people. But this basic premise, which has been true for decades, regardless of who is in power, the ability for our government and our society to get behind spending enormous amounts of money to either kill people or to grab resources or to just maintain the instrument to do that, ultimately, to maintain the threat that we can do that, versus our ability to provide for people in need, is just, it's stunning.
Well, it's upheld by this cult of individualism that's so ingrained in our culture. And then it's just justified by the institutions that we put in place there, right? So, I mean, College for All, for example, that was the same cost as the military budget increase in just one division that Trump was proposing just 2 years ago. It's very cheap based on what our government spends on a yearly basis. And this is a prime example of it. McConnell is pushing for austerity. All he cares about is the liability shield, the protections for corporations, the protections for employers. He doesn't even want to do any extension of unemployment insurance if it was his way, or he doesn't want any stimulus. I mean, that's not even in the compromise bill that Pelosi is pushing now. So we have all of these moving parts. Without Trump's ego involved, and when it's Biden as president, if we have a Republican majority still, I think it's going to be very hard to get those checks. But if the Georgian Senate runoffs go the Democrats' way, and then it's a 50-50 split with Harris as the tiebreaker, okay, potentially we could be getting those stimulus checks. There's so many moving parts, but there is one thing in Democrats' favor right now, between now and Inauguration Day, is Trump's desire to have another round of checks go out with Donald J. Trump in massive bold lettering in his signature on the bottom.
Yes. I mean, right now, if I was in the Senate, I would be floating the idea of putting his picture on these checks.
Yes. Send them out in just coins, tokens with his weird face on it.
You want to call them Trump bucks? Let's call them Trump bucks.
Do it.
I imagine, it would be shameless, but I actually think it would be effective. I would like to see Senator Sanders get on the floor of the Senate and say, I propose that we call these Trump bucks, and we propose and propose that we call the extension of unemployment benefits, Trump benefits.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Pelosi and Schumer's heads would explode, because there seems to be some evidence that the checks with his name on it did have some political
effect. If he
effect.
wants to run in 2024, let's deal with it then. But it really does put in stark relief how crucial this election in Georgia is. And I don't want people to mistake what I'm saying here. Georgia, those two, the election of those two members of the Senate in Georgia will mean an ability of Joe Biden to appoint judges. It'll mean an ability for Joe Biden to get his cabinet in place in a timely fashion. And most importantly, and I don't think it goes beyond this very much at all, because you're going to have Joe Manchin and Kelly and a bunch of them standing in the way of any type of real progressive legislation. But what it will do is it will allow at least a one-time bite at an apple via reconciliation on a massive stimulus bill. Stimulus, relief, whatever you want to call it, infrastructure, any type of government spending can be rolled into that reconciliation bill, and it can be a total one-off. And then see you again next year if the Democrats are so inclined. But Georgia is hugely important, and it's frustrating because there's only so much we can do. And I think those Georgian Senate races, they want to keep it localized to a certain extent. although
Which
I
I think is
imagine that
smart
they accept
idea.
your support in any way you can, but we shall see.